I'm Tennessee Brando with the MeidasTouch Network. And one of the talking points that I hear these days, not just from MAGA Republicans, but I also hear it from progressives and liberals as well, people are concerned about Joe Biden's age. And yes, Joe Biden is an older man. Yes, it would be interesting to see more younger candidates as our choices, but right now our choices are Joe Biden, who's running for re-election, going up against what is looking like it's going to be Donald Trump, because he is currently leading the Republican Party. So you've got Joe Biden versus a potentially Donald Trump rematch or another MAGA candidate that they will push to the front. And we can judge this whole thing based on Joe Biden's record versus what MAGA Republicans have to offer. But I tell you who can say this a whole lot better than I can, and that is who I call the queen of I told you so. Let's take a look at this clip from Hillary Clinton, and then let's come back and talk more about this.
Well, the question's legitimate, but the conclusion that people draw is, I think, off base. Look, I am supporting President Biden and Vice President Harris because of what they've gotten accomplished. I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. I like to see people, as I said, tackle big problems, bring people together, and try to forge solutions. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm kind of happy that we're fixing our bridges and our roads and the rest of our infrastructure. And I'm thrilled that we are going to compete with China on advanced manufacturing, and that we're going to make the transition to clean energy as quickly as we possibly can, plus bring down drug prices. And I could go on and on. So when people say to me, well, he's old, yeah, that's right. But look at what he's gotten done. And then, if that's not enough for you, look at the alternative. A wrecking crew. People who, as Mitt Romney said, do not even believe in our Constitution, who don't want to solve problems, who only want to engage in meaningless, endless partisan sniping and insulting. So literally for me, when I look at what's been accomplished with the team that was put together, I am very impressed. And I saw the president and the first lady at the White House just 2 days ago, and I love their energy, their commitment, their determination, and, I'm all in to reelect people who got things done. That's what this country needs. We need to remember that we can get good stuff done, and that we are by far the best positioned country for the 21st century to continue to lead and make a difference. And we just got to get the naysayers and the whiners and the snipers, to just go to the back of the room, because they're not helping at all.
As always, Hillary Clinton is spot on here. Yes, Joe Biden is old, but we have to look at his record. One of the things that I hear people love to say about Donald Trump all the time is they'll say, well, if you take a look at Trump's policies, if you take a look at Trump's presidency on paper, let's be realistic here. If you take a look at Joe Biden's presidency on paper and Joe Biden's policy on paper versus Donald Trump, he has completely blown Donald Trump out of the water. And that's one point that I feel like we don't get across enough, is that look at what this man's accomplished. And these are things that are going to have long-term positive effects on our country. You can easily look to high gas prices, and you can say, well, gas prices are high at the moment. Those are things that go up and down regardless of who the president is. You can easily look at inflation. You can easily look at things that are going to be temporary. But long-term, Joe Biden has done a whole lot of good things for this country. And one of the things that I hear so many people constantly go on about is not only his age, but they love to go on about how that he can't complete a sentence, and that he gets tongue-tied, and that he stutters, and that he trips and falls. And every time they say that crap, I say to myself, I've got a dad that does the same stuff. And I would rather have my dad standing beside me than anybody I know. I mean, Joe Biden has always had a stutter. We know that. Joe Biden sometimes does get confused and forget what he's going to say. Joe Biden has fell down before. What 80-year-old guy hasn't? It's ridiculous to me how that, Donald Trump is only 3 years younger than Biden, and they act like that Trump is some young man running for office. He's not. It's such hypocrisy. It's such bullshit. And this whole idea that he can't complete a sentence always gets under my skin, because I'm going to play you a clip of Joe Biden talking directly about what he's accomplished. So let's go to this clip of Joe Biden and tell me, where is this incoherent guy that guys like Joe Rogan's always telling us about?
In fact, only 2 presidents in American history with fewer jobs the day they left office than when they started. One was President Hoover, and the other was Donald Hoover Trump. Seriously, only 2 presidents in American history. And look, you may remember my predecessor promised to be the greatest job president in history. Well, it didn't really work out that way. He lost 2 million jobs over the course of his presidency. 2 million. We've created 13.4 million new jobs. We not only recovered all the jobs we lost during the pandemic, we've added millions more. We've seen record lows in unemployment, particularly, and I've focused on this my whole career, particularly for African Americans and Hispanic workers and veterans. You know, the workers without high school diplomas, the lowest unemployment rate in 70 years for women now. You know, by the way, when I got elected, I promised I wanted an administration that looked like America. I got more women in the cabinet than any president has ever in history. And I got more women than men in the cabinet.
So where was the stutter? Where was the inability to complete a sentence? Where was the narrative that these right-wing pundits love to spin? I didn't hear it. What I heard was a president talking about what he's accomplished, and I heard a president who was talking to the American people in a sensible manner. And that's such a breath of fresh air. We don't get to talk about this enough because Donald Trump and his cult is still out there, and they're still loud. And they've still got this megaphone just screaming in our faces. But it's such a breath of fresh air to hear a president come out and talk about the good of everyone. And a president that has compassion, and a president that has empathy, and a president that has everyone's best interest at heart and not just himself. I started to say that Donald Trump has, his cult's best interest at heart. He doesn't. He uses them for his own interest, and that's all he's ever been about. And it's such a breath of fresh air to have a decent man like Joe Biden in office. You know what? I'll sit back and I'll forgive him for the stutter. I'll sit back and I'll wait for him to remember what he was going to say to complete his sentence, because I realize that he has all of our best interests at heart, and the only person Donald Trump's looking out for is himself. Now, in that clip of Joe Biden, we saw him talk about the 13 million jobs and how he brought back the jobs from COVID and added more. He talked about the women in his cabinet, and all of that is great. But there's one line in that clip that really leaped out at me. He said, "I promised you I would build a country that looked like America." The question we have to ask ourselves is this: would a second Donald Trump presidency look like all of America? Do you think a second Trump presidency would have all of our best interests at heart? The first one sure as hell didn't. Do you think it's going to be different the second time around? No, it's going to be even worse, because like Hillary Clinton said at the start of this video, we're going to see a wrecking crew who cares nothing about the Constitution. And it's all going to be revenge. It's all going to be Donald Trump trying to get back at everyone for everything that he did and they tried to hold him accountable for. That's what his presidency would look like. That's what we're up against come Election Day 2024. Ronald Reagan one time coined the phrase. He said, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" And that's a line that candidates have used to this day. You'll hear people still use that line. And my question would be this: were we better off because Donald Trump became president or not? Wouldn't we have been a lot better off if Hillary Clinton had have became president? Can you imagine where our country would be today had Hillary served instead of Trump? The Supreme Court justices that were appointed under Trump would not have been appointed under Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump stacked the Supreme Court in MAGA's favor, and that's why we saw women's rights stripped away. That's why we saw minorities' rights stripped away. And do you think a second term of Trump would be any better? Do you think he's going to suddenly start caring about all of us? No. He's going to come at us harder than ever, and it will not be a country that looks like America. It will be a country that looks like Donald Trump's ego, Donald Trump's hatred, and Donald Trump's revenge. And we cannot have that. So what we always need to do is we need to point to what Joe Biden has accomplished. We always need to remind people of his accomplishments and drive those points home. And then we have to remind people, were we better off before Trump entered the political theater, or are we better off with him out of it? I want to get back to seeing Republicans and Democrats have debates again about real issues. I would love to live in a country where Democrats brought their ideas to the table, and they had data and they had research to back up these ideas, and the Republicans did the same, and then we debated on which one would be the best idea, instead of, man, we just have to vote down this lunacy over here. I would love to see a broader choice, and yes, Joe Biden is old. He would admit that. But we always have to point to, what did Joe Biden hook his political wagon to? It sure as hell wasn't this MAGA cult that we see. He hooked his wagon to the good of all people. and he reached across the aisle and he tried to shake hands with people who continued to clench their fist. And you got to give him credit for that. And you got to start inspiring other people to vote. There's a whole lot of people out there who don't talk politics. I hear it all the time. They know what I do, and they'll say, yeah, I don't talk politics. I don't get into that. I don't vote. And I'm like, you better get into it, and you better start voting. Because as you sit here and wondered where all these rights went, they went away while you were too afraid to talk politics. Now's the time to talk it more than ever, and now's the time to inspire people to get out there and get to the polls and vote. Because this is about democracy. This is not about left versus right here, folks. This is about restoring our democracy. And I would love to see it get back to two candidates debating what's best for the country instead of one candidate trying to fight off a batshit crazy cult. I know that's harsh, but that's the reality of where we're at. So inspire people to get out there and vote, and inspire people to help us save democracy. And be sure to hit that subscribe button here on MeidasTouch, because we crossed over 1.5 million subscribers, and now we're headed toward 2 million, and I know we can get there. So until next time, I'm Tennessee Brando. You guys keep tuning in, and we'll keep telling you the truth.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.